You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter @RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, except no imitation. I've got to start with the NHL hitting the pause button on their season. They had a Christmas break scheduled for the 24th to the 26th in response to rising COVID cases. The NHL is extending that break 2 days. So the break will now be from tomorrow to Boxing Day, the 2-year anniversary of this show, for whatever it's worth. This is unquestionably the right decision. These leagues are experiencing a steep increase in COVID cases. See, we operate under the assumption that these players are safe, they're protected, they're in a bubble, nothing's going to happen to them. The reality is, sports COVID cases have mirrored what's going on in this country. And with COVID cases rising basically all over the nation, a symptom of that will be an increase in sports COVID cases. I mean, it is unquestionably the right decision to pause the season. I called for leagues to do this yesterday. The thing is, though, it only makes sense if you use the pause correctly. If you're using the pause so that everyone gets over COVID and that's it, no, that's not the right way to go about this. The NHL has presented a gift to its players. You now have 2 free days to get your booster shot. This would be a very stark thing for the NHL to do, but seeing as though they have handled this pandemic worse than anyone this season, I could understand them doing it. They made a big deal out of basically everyone being fully vaccinated before the season started. Great, fantastic. But now that boosters are available for everyone, and we know that they're an excellent protection against the coronavirus, you've got to make it so as many NHLers get their boosters as possible. If these players and coaches are just going to be at home twiddling their thumbs, that's not solving anything. All you're doing is kicking the can down the road. But you can use this time to get your booster shot. And you know that pharmacies would love to give NHLers boosters. And I'm going to tell you why. At the end of the day, pharmacists want to help people. That's their job. How can they help as many people as possible? By giving boosters to whoever wants it. What if you don't want the booster? There are some people who you're never going to convince. We've learned that from the people who haven't even gotten their first dose of the vaccine. But let's say there are people who don't know how important a booster is. That's okay. I don't begrudge them for that. Our government has done a terrible job of getting the word out on the importance of boosters. And that's on the local, state, and federal level. Donald Trump said that he got his booster. I don't know if Joe Biden ever said that he got a booster. I'm not saying he did. I'm not saying he didn't. I don't know. I know for a fact that Trump did. But let's say a team like the Islanders calls a local CVS and says, you know what, we want all our people to get vaccinated. The front office, the coaching staff, the scouts, the trainers, the equipment managers, the players, we want everyone to get boosters. They're all on board. That pharmacy would love to help. And if they don't have the inventory, they will find pharmacies that do. In fact, one thing they may do is put this all over social media. The Islanders are getting the vaccine. Here's Barry Trotz to tell you why it's so important. I believe that with the immense platform that sports teams have, they have a duty to do what's right. We saw that in the NBA bubble with their very vocal support of Black Lives Matter. Don't stop there. At the end of the day, this pandemic is the biggest issue facing this country. You have the power to help. Get the word out. Say that this is what happened when I got the booster. I implore everyone else to get it. It's the best way to stay safe, to keep my teammates safe, and to keep my family safe. Quite frankly, if I was the owner of a sports team, I'd strongly implore the people working for my team to do PSAs about the importance of vaccines and boosters. If you have this big megaphone, if you have this massive platform, you've got to use it. Use it for good. Here's another interesting thing. What does this mean for the Olympics? Is the NHL going to put its foot down and say we're not going to stop the season? We're not going to let the players go to the Olympics? I mean, I understand you can't barricade them in the team hotel, but you can dock their pay. You can make life very difficult for them. I mean, the NHL shouldn't be going to the Olympics anyway. But now you're having this elongated pause just to pause the season a little over a month from now. It makes no sense. The NHL cannot survive that. No one's going to be into the NHL. It's okay if you're going to make your pause 5 days instead of 3. That's okay. You can do that. But to then come back from the pause, play for a little over a month, and then miss like 3 weeks, that's not going to work. You can't keep doing this to the fans. You can't keep yo-yoing them around. It's bad enough that I had my heart set on watching the Islanders yesterday, but I couldn't do it. It's bad enough that I almost went to the Islanders game on Thursday. The game against the Capitals that got postponed. You know, I understand that you have no control over the coronavirus. And if circumstances dictate that you postpone games, fine. I get that. You've got to apply the logic consistently, but whatever. To pause the season for 3 weeks so you can go to Beijing? No. That is not going to work for me. I'm going to have a major problem with that. I have a major problem with it anyway. But if the point is that these players should be so closely monitored that they can't even go from the US to Canada, that we need to stop the season before we originally planned, why are you letting them go halfway around the world? The U.S. State Department puts out travel advisories, letting people know if it's safe or not to travel to this country. It goes from 1 to 4. 1 is exercise normal precautions. Level 4 is do not travel. You know what China is? Level 3. Reconsider travel. But sure, let's send all our players to Beijing and expect them to come back perfectly healthy. Yeah, that'll work. Don't go to the Olympics. Don't postpone the season any more than you have to. There have been over 40 games postponed because of the coronavirus. The plan, presumably, is to make all those games up on the back end. Push the playoffs back. Why would you do that? You have this built-in break in February. It's literally perfect. Put all the games there. Shrink the season, or maybe try to put together an all-star game. I don't know how that would work. You don't have a lot of time to do that. Maybe that's something that you figure out during this pause. Use the pause constructively. Get your booster shot. And realize that Olympic participation is an especially bad idea right now. It's always a bad idea for the NHL to pause their season for the Olympics. But now, with circumstances being the way they are, it would be famously stupid to send the players to Beijing. It would be negligence of the highest degree. Use this time to realize that going to Beijing is a terrible idea, and put all the games that were postponed in the winter break. You have these built-in off days already. Use them. Maybe you can put together an all-star game. Use the time constructively to figure out if that could be done. Or shrink the season. You know when the season is set to end? I'll tell you. The regular season is set to end in late April. Now, with these postponed games, that's going to stretch into May. So we're going to have July hockey. No one wants July hockey. June hockey is bad enough. But July hockey is terrible. Yeah, I'm going to go to a hockey game in shorts. Shrink the season. Do what's right. Use your noodle. Alright, now I'll give you some NFL Valk talk. We did have a couple games yesterday. I'll start with Raiders-Browns. Basically, the Raiders just knocked the Browns out of playoff contention. A win for the Browns would have moved them into the 4 seed in the AFC. They would have had the AFC North lead over the Bengals. Now, the Browns are 12th in the AFC. They've got a lot of teams ahead of them and not a lot of time to make that ground up. Their season is probably over. Having said that, though, I can't really begrudge the Browns for losing this game. At the end of the day, they were down to their third-string quarterback. Now, granted, Nick Mullins is elite as far as third-string quarterbacks go. Like, in all seriousness, some teams don't even have third-string quarterbacks. So for Nick Mullins, a guy who can come into any NFL game and not embarrass himself, who gives you a legitimate chance to win every game that he starts, that's pretty good as far as third-string quarterbacks go. You don't want him starting, okay? No one wants Nick Mullins as a starting quarterback, but as a third stringer, if you need to start him for one game, fine, you can live with that. And look, the Browns had every chance to win this game. Nick Chubb had 23 carries for 91 yards. He had a touchdown run. The Browns' defense was excellent. I thought their defensive line was really good. Guys like Myles Garrett, obviously, Porter Gustin, Sheldon Day, and Malik Jackson really impressed me. They made Derek Carr's life very difficult. The thing is, though, with the third-string quarterback, you're gonna shrink the playbook. You're not gonna let him do the things that you'd let Baker Mayfield or even Case Keenum do. You're gonna have him throw dink and dunk passes. You're gonna want him to play mistake-free football. You're gonna want him to be conservative. You're not gonna let him push the envelope. The longest pass that Mullins had was a 25-yarder. And even then, that came at the end of the game where the Browns needed a big touchdown drive to take the lead. So you have no choice but to let Mullins air it out. I mean, that was a good throw to Donovan Peoples-Jones. He was by far and away the best Browns pass catcher. 4 catches for 48 yards. He's not a bad player, let me tell you. I mean, you want to tell me that the Browns should have let Mullins air the ball out a little bit more? I'm really not sure. Look, Mullins isn't a terrible quarterback. There's a role for him in the league. He's better than some backups. I think we can all agree on that. But when you have a guy like Nick Chubb and you're without Jarvis Landry, the passing game is going to take a back seat. You're going to let Chubb do Nick Chubb things. And Chubb was good. He averaged just about 4 yards a carry. At the end of the day, the Browns lost this game because they don't have a killer instinct. You think about what they've done recently, they only beat the Lions by 3. They have every opportunity to beat the Ravens in Baltimore. They can't do it. Then in Cleveland, they get outscored 16-0 by the Ravens in the second half. They just don't have that killer instinct. When they smell blood in the water, they don't execute. Now, what's sad is one player was a shark with blood in the water. Greedy Williams made an excellent play to get that interception. I mean, granted, the ball was overthrown a little bit, but Carr's throwing that ball from his own 30-yard line, and he's getting it to the 20. I mean, he's putting everything he can behind that football. Now, he never should have thrown it. That ball did go into double coverage, and it was 1st and 10. You really didn't need to air it out, but look, Williams did an excellent job of going stride for stride with Zay Jones. He, in essence, used his body to shield Jones away from that football. He just played it perfectly. Outstanding job by Greedy Williams. So the Browns get the ball back with 2:47 left to go in the game. They're up 14-13 at this point. The Browns had just went on that big 15-play drive, took over 8 minutes off the clock. It was excellently done by Nick Mullins and Nick Chubb. The thing is, though, they couldn't do it again. They went 3 and out on the ensuing drive. Dustin Colquitt had to punt the ball away. Derek Carr gets it back at his own 29-yard line. And he's able to drive down the field. He gets the big 3rd and 7 conversion. He gets the big 2nd and 11 conversion off the hold by Colton Miller. Then Daniel Carlson, with the ice in his veins, kicks the game-winning field goal. I mean, the Raiders are that team that has struggled to win late in the season. That's what's cost them playoff berths the last couple seasons. And you're seeing it this year. They've lost 5 of their last 7. But now, they are 7-7. They are in the playoff hunt. The Browns are too. They just have a ton of teams to leapfrog. I don't see it. The Raiders, it's going to be really tough, but it's not impossible. They control their own destiny. Their next 3 games are against the Broncos, Colts, and Chargers. 3 teams that they need to worry about if they're going to make the playoffs. The Raiders control their own destiny. I don't want to say I'm confident in their ability to make the playoffs, because they've been in this spot before and they haven't executed. But stranger things have happened. Moving on now to Vikings-Bears. I thought I saw bad football being a Jets fan. No, Vikings-Bears was an absolutely terrible game. I don't know how you got into that game. I mean, if you're a Vikings fan, I get it. If you're a Bears fan, I get it. But other than that, I mean, my God, what an abysmal game. Why exactly were you so afraid to let Kirk Cousins air the football out? It's clear Dalvin Cook wasn't getting the job done. All due respect to Dalvin Cook. Great player. Totally get that. But for goodness sake, if you see that he doesn't have it, let Cousins air the ball out. Cook had 28 carries for 89 yards. That is an average of 3.2 yards per carry. Kirk Cousins, meanwhile, wasn't good, okay? I don't want it to come off like Kirk Cousins was the second coming of Fran Tarkenton, but you gotta give him a chance. You can't have him throw all these short passes and expect to win. The only reason that you won this game is because David Montgomery was abysmal and Justin Fields had a bad game. Matt Nagy did a terrible job with play calling. It was just a joke. What a terrible game. Here are the stats. Cousins completed 12 of 24 passes for 87 yards. Look, the offensive line was abysmal. I understand that Cousins didn't have a lot of time, but you've got to let him air the ball out more. Not for nothing, but if you're starting Kindle Vildor, you've got to pick on him. I don't care if Justin Jefferson isn't on him. Let KJ Osborne go off. I mean, if Cook doesn't have it, let Cousins pick on Vildor. Meanwhile, somehow, some way, the Bears were even worse. David Montgomery was ineffective. He had 18 carries for only 60 yards. He fumbled once. DJ Wonham, a guy who entered the game with only 3 sacks this year, had 3 sacks yesterday. All due respect to Wonham, but no one's gonna mistake him for Alan Page anytime soon. You can't let DJ Wonham get 3 sacks in a game. You can't commit 9 penalties for 91 yards. And if you're the coach, you can't get flagged for an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty that gifts the Vikings 3 points. I have defended Matt Nagy. I don't think he's as bad as some people make him out to be, but my God, if ever there was an example of a coach just wearing out his welcome, you're seeing it in Chicago. Nagy's done. Will Nagy land on his feet? The answer is yes. Maybe he won't be a head coach right away. Maybe he'll have to be an offensive coordinator. But the Bears just looked lost. They've now dropped 8 of their last 9 games. They are 4-10. I don't think anyone looks at Justin Fields and feels incredibly confident in him. At the end of the day, when Nagy made the move to bench Andy Dalton for Justin Fields, he changed the narrative of the season. He had to develop Justin Fields. You still had to win some games, but if Fields was playing great, you were just losing because of your defense, that could have been forgiven. For Justin Fields, in a nationally televised game, to only put up 9 points, for him to have completed less than 59% of his passes this year, to have 7 touchdowns to 10 interceptions, to have fumbled the ball 12 times, to have lost 5 of those fumbles, it's clear that Nagy just isn't getting the job done. He better take resume writing classes. There is no way that he is back next year as Bears head coach. Either Eric Bieniemy or Brian Daboll should get that job. Alright, now it's time to preview tonight's 2 games. I'll start with Seahawks Rams. Man, the Seahawks are just a weird team. They have the worst passing defense in the NFL in terms of passing yards given up. The thing is, though, they've given up the 4th fewest points per game in the NFL. Meanwhile, their offense is in the bottom half of the league in terms of points per game. Then you remember that Geno Smith started a few games. Russell Wilson came back, looked dreadful against the Packers, looked dreadful against the Cardinals, really didn't look that good against Washington, but he's rebounded against the Niners and Texans. This is just a weird Seahawks team. I mean, look, you get the sense that they could blow things up next year. We've heard Russell Wilson trade rumors. You know Pete Carroll's not going to want to be a part of that. Then again, you can make the argument that you have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You have one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. You have a very strong defense with guys like Al Woods, Bobby Wagner, Poona Ford, DJ Reed Jr., Quandre Diggs, and Carlos Dunlap. Yes, I'm leaving out Jamal Adams because screw Jamal Adams. Mr. Blitzing Safety doesn't have a sack this year and has a 60.1 overall grade according to Pro Football Focus. Like I said, to hell with Jamal Adams. I mean, you can make the argument that the Seahawks can run it back. If they seriously upgrade the offensive line, like if they put all their eggs in the improving the offensive line basket, you can make the argument that that can work. They are weird. They are just a weird team. Meanwhile, the Rams are one of the best teams in the NFL. Make no mistake about it, they are a Super Bowl threat. There are really 6 teams that I look at as Super Bowl threats. And only one of them plays in the AFC. The Chiefs are the only Super Bowl threat in the AFC. I can't include the Bills and Ravens in that mix. The Ravens are out of the playoffs right now, and the Bills have been slumping. I just don't see them as a Super Bowl winner. It wouldn't stun me if they made the AFC title game, but I don't think the Super Bowl's going to Buffalo. Meanwhile, in the NFC, you've got the Packers, Cowboys, Buccaneers, Cardinals, and Rams. The Rams are part of the class of the NFL. Matthew Stafford's having a great season. Really happy for him. It'll be nice to see him strut his stuff in the playoffs. Cooper Kupp is having an MVP caliber season. Sonny Michel was really good in relief of Darrell Henderson. It'll be interesting to see how Sean McVay makes that work. Obviously, you have Aaron Donald. Obviously, you have Jalen Ramsey. Von Miller's going to be back. Jordan Fuller, Greg Gaines, Leonard Floyd, and A'Shawn Robinson are having good seasons. I don't see how the Seahawks win this game. The Rams are just better. There's no other way to say it. The Rams are going to win this game. Moving on now to Washington versus Philly. A very important game. The winner of this game will force a three-way tie for the final wildcard spot in the NFC. They'll be tied with the Vikings and Saints. The reality is, Washington has no chance to win this game. The plan right now is for Garrett Gilbert to start. Taylor Heineke and Kyle Allen seem very unlikely to be cleared for this game. I mean, you're not going to win a game with Garrett Gilbert as your starting quarterback. No one would know Garrett Gilbert if he came to their house and delivered them a pizza. You remember how bad he was in the game that he started for the Cowboys last year, right? It was the Steelers game. Gilbert completed just 55.3% of his passes. The Cowboys were up 13-0 at one point. They were up 19-9 after 3 quarters. They ended up losing that game. Washington has no chance in this game. Yes, they have a great offensive line. Yes, they have Antonio Gibson. Yes, they have Terry McLaurin. Yes, they have Jonathan Allen. Yes, they have Kendall Fuller. But Philly's winning this game. Garrett Gilbert is not going to go into the link and beat the Eagles. I'm not a Jalen Hurts fan. I don't like the players that the Eagles have outside of Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. That's just on the offensive side. Defensively, they have some really good players. But I don't see how the Eagles lose this game. I think guys like Darius Slay, Avonte Maddox, Josh Sweat, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, etc., are going to make Gilbert's life very difficult. Give me the Eagles. I'll close this show out with some college football Valk talk. I'll start with the Myrtle Beach Bowl. Tulsa beating Old Dominion like I said they would. I've got to say this, Davis Brin really impressed me. I did not think he was going to have a great game against Old Dominion. I thought the ODU defense would make his life very difficult, but give him credit. He had probably his best game of the season. Completed just under 2/3 of his passes for 285 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, he was the seminal reason that Tulsa won. I don't want to diminish the impact that guys like Shamari Brooks, Josh Johnson, and Juan Carlos Santana had, but this game is more on Brin. He just had a great game. I mean, the biggest moment of the game happened very early. ODU took the opening kickoff to the house for a touchdown. Immediately, they put Tulsa on the ropes. If ODU forces a 3-and-out, they get the ball back and score, you've got to feel really good about the Monarchs' chances. Instead, Brin led his team down the field in under 2 minutes and tied the game at 7. Then later in the quarter, Bryn threw his first touchdown pass, and Tulsa never relinquished the lead. The high watermark of the game for the Monarchs was the first play of the game. I mean, give the Golden Hurricane a ton of credit for being able to withstand that big right hook. It's very easy to keel over and die after something like that. They didn't. Outstanding job by Philip Montgomery. This was a really good Golden Hurricane team. Congrats to them. I mean, this was a bad game for the Monarchs. Hayden Wolf was really bad. Threw for under 200 yards, didn't throw a touchdown, threw an interception. Blake Watson was good, the running back. 14 carries for 77 yards and a touchdown. Ollie Jennings had 6 catches for 74 yards, although he fumbled the ball twice and lost one of them. At the end of the day, Tulsa was just the better team. I mean, the Monarchs don't have much to be ashamed about. Their story is very easy to get behind. Here's a team that started playing college football in 2014. Now they're in a bowl game. Ricky Ronnie does have that team pointed in the right direction. I wouldn't beat myself up if I was a Monarchs fan. Moving on now to the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. We have Wyoming taking on Kent State. When you look at the Cowboys, they are the prototypical ground and pound team. You don't need to worry about their quarterbacks, Levi Williams and Sean Chambers. They're not very good. You do need to worry about their running backs. Xavier Valladay and Titus Swen form a very potent duo. Valladay had just under 1,000 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. Swen had 737 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns. Now, part of the reason for the success of guys like Valladay and Swen is the Cowboys' O-line. Rudy Stouffer, Keegan Kreider, and Logan Harris are really, really good offensive linemen. Defensively, though, the Cowboys are stacked. They had the 37th best defense in the nation in terms of opposing points per game. You look at guys like Chad Muma, Azizi Hearn, Cole Godbout, CJ Colden, Garrett Kroll, and Easton Gibbs. They have very, very talented players. Give Craig Bowl a ton of credit. He's a very underrated head coach. Meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, you have the Golden Flashes. All offense, no defense. Dustin Crum is a solid quarterback. Not great, not terrible. He's helped a lot by 2 really talented skill position players. Marquez Cooper had over 1,000 rushing yards this year and 11 touchdowns. Dante Cephas had 78 catches for over 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. You're going to see the triple option. Cooper's going to get his chances to run. Crum's going to get his chances to run. Xavier Williams is going to get his chances to run. He had 812 rushing yards this year. This is a very tough Golden Flash's team to prepare for. Now, defensively is where they struggle. They have a few solid players, but no one that really knocks your socks off. Savon Taylor-Davis, Nico Bolden, Keith Sherrill Jr., Elvis Hines, and Aiden Huntington are good players. They're not great. But give Sean Lewis credit. In a very short period of time, he has whipped the Golden Flashes into shape. It wouldn't stun me at all if a big school came calling during the next coaching carousel to try to lure him away from Kent State. This is a very tough matchup to pick. It wouldn't stun me if either team won, but all in all, I think Kent State just has more firepower. I think their triple option is going to be a little too much for Wyoming. This is going to be a really good game, but it's one that I expect the Golden Flashes to win. You know, it's kind of funny. I've heard a lot of people make fun of me for my interest in these minor bowl games. And I get it. They're on in the middle of the day, when people are working, not great teams going at it. Like you hear someone say, "Oh, I'm going to watch the famous Idaho Potato Bowl." You may tune out, right? You may make fun of them. Well, if you do that for the next bowl game, the Frisco Bowl, you're going to miss an excellent game. San Diego State versus UTSA. UTSA was ranked at one point this year, and the Aztecs are ranked right now. This is going to be a phenomenal game. It's going to be incredibly easy to get into. Now, San Diego State is a little banged up right now. They've got a lot of players hurt. The thing is, though, I don't think that's going to affect them a ton. Firstly, their best offensive player, Greg Bell, is healthy. Bell had just under 1,000 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. And the Aztecs rely a lot on deception. Their scheme is excellent. Brady Hoke has done a great job with that school. Yes, that is Brady Hoke, the former Michigan coach, who did a terrible job there. But he's doing a good job with the Aztecs. The Aztecs' offensive line is one of the best in the nation. Zach Thomas, Chris Martinez, Alama Uluwave, William Dunkel, and Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon are insane. Those guys are obviously all healthy. Defensively, the Aztecs are stacked. They have the 16th best defense in the nation in terms of opposing points per game. I mean, the list runs a mile long. Cameron Thomas, Taylor Hawkins, Jonah Tavai, Keyshawn Banks, Patrick McMorris, Trenton Thompson, etc., etc. This is a stacked Aztecs team. You can make a very strong argument that they should be higher than 24th. Meanwhile, you look at the Roadrunners, we know their story. They were undefeated for a while. Then they got creamed by North Texas. Then they won the Conference USA title game against Western Kentucky, so they're currently 12-1. The Roadrunners are absolutely insane. I mean, they really deserve to be in the national title conversation. I'm sorry, they just did. They started the season 11-0. Jeff Traylor has done a phenomenal job with them. He took over a school that went 4-8 in Frank Wilson's last year. Traylor's first year there, they went 7-5. They lost a close bowl game to the Raging Cajuns. It was the First Responder Bowl. It was 31-24 Louisiana. Now they're 12-1. I mean, again, they started 11-0. What more do they need to do? Tell me the difference between the AAC, where Cincinnati plays, and Conference USA, where UTSA plays. They're both Group of 5. Cincy should be in over UTSA. Cincy was undefeated. UTSA wasn't. But UTSA should have been mentioned in the national title conversation earlier this year, and they should be in a more prestigious bowl game. Their offense is insane. Frank Harris is a really good quarterback. Not great, but makes very smart decisions. Sincere McCormick is one of the best running backs in the nation. Has just under 1,500 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns. The pass catchers are really good. Zachary Franklin, Joshua Cephas, and DeCorian Clark. Defensively, the Roadrunners have a bunch of really good players. Corey Mayfield Jr., Clarence Hicks, Trumaine Bell II, Brandon Brown, Dadrian Taylor, Charles Wiley. The list runs a mile long. It really does. This is a really, really, really good Roadrunners team. It's massively underrated. The Aztecs are really good too. This is going to be a great game. And there isn't much else on in the sports world. If you have no interest in any of the professional games, which is fine, and I don't begrudge you if you don't, you have no excuse to not watch this game. I think it's going to be a great game, but it's one that I expect UTSA to win. Until tomorrow, I'm Jacob Valk, and always remember, if you disagree with me, you're wrong.